want to go round. What's everyone's kind of big thing that they're kind of glad they got done this year? Like, I'm not going to use low bows, because if anyone goes and watches low bows, I'm not going to use his "what are you proud of" thing, because I can't stand that either. But what are you thinking? You know what? I'm glad I got that done, because, and it could be for any reason. Like, it's going to be playing on your mind, because obviously that's something a lot of us that overthink will do. But it's something that'll be playing on your mind, or you're just like, you know what? I wanted to get that done. That was my New Year's resolution from last year, and I did it. Like, what are we thinking? I'm going to go round in the order that I can see you on my screen. So, low bow.
Okay, so I think for this year, I'm not going to say I'm most proud of, I promise you. I'm going to say what I am glad I got accomplished this past year was sticking with this as consistently as I could. I am extremely happy with myself that I stuck with it, and also realized a huge thing that when I feel like I come off horribly to some people, I really don't. And it's an internal thing with me, is when I'm afraid that I've offended someone or I have said something wrong, I will go crazy thinking about it. When honestly, I've now come to the conclusion that most of the time, people are just happy with you being yourself.
It's definitely,
and that realization, I mean, I've always been myself, but felt bad sometimes about it. This year, I am extremely happy I accomplished. I'm trying not to say proud of, man. I'm trying.
It's fine.
Okay. I'm extremely proud of that. I've recognized a lot of things about myself I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I've accepted that they're okay.
I think that is a thing. I mean, if a neurodivergent living in a neurotypical world constantly is there thinking, I've done something that's annoyed someone, upset someone. It's like, yeah, because we're living in somebody else's world. We're not living in a world that's made for us. And, you know, there's something that was told to me a while ago, is that the person that truly has tried to offend and actively offended isn't worried about the fact that they've done that.
Well, yeah, and but actively offend, it's funny because it's sometimes I confuse when I'm in a group of neurodivergence and a group of neurotypicals. If I'm in a group of neurotypicals, I'm going to act the same way as I am, you know, with neurodivergence. The problem is how they receive it.
That's their problem, not yours.
Right? No, I know that. But
Yeah.
That is what I am, I guess, proud of this year accomplishing, is understanding that difference.
Yeah.
And that's a massive thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've said this before, is that neurotypicals have got to get used to the fact that neurodivergents have had enough with their bullshit. We've had enough of going, oh, well, we've got to play to your tune. No, we're done with it. That was how it used to be. And it caused God knows how many suicides. It's caused, that's one YouTube I ain't going to like, but hey, you know, it's caused all these issues because for so long, people with neurodivergency have been going, oh, well, we better do it that way, and been having to push down parts of themselves to make somebody else happy because of rules that mean nothing. So yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you've kind of started to discover and realize that about yourself, because it is something that I think draws so many people to like the edge of a cliff. You know, it's really bad.
Well, and it's hard a little bit too, because I do have a group of neurotypical friends that don't judge me for those things, truly, but it's the outside of that group. It's the outside of that group of neurotypical friends that gives me that anxious feeling when I feel like I say something I shouldn't or whatever, when I honestly feel 100% accepted by the neurodivergence. It's understanding that I'm going to be fucking accepted no matter what, as long as I just stick to what I'm fucking doing. Like, yeah. And that's,
I think that's the big difference, isn't it? And it's hard to realize that the people outside of your bubble don't matter to you within your own bubble. So don't let them in. Fuck them.
There you go.
What about you?
Let's see. So this is it's a good question, and I've actually been doing a lot of reflection on kind of the past year and where I want to go forward. And So one of the things I did is I kind of looked to summarize my entire year in a single word. And for me, that was exploration. So what that looks like is, there's a lot of talk around focusing on, oh, you got to like just focus and like, do the one thing and, do, don't let your mind wander or whatever. And I took the opposite approach and I followed what I was interested in. I played around with different ideas and kind of just figured out what I enjoyed about each thing. And through that process, I really have been able to clarify what I want the next year and even kind of the next 5 and 10 years to really look like, because I gave myself the room to explore. And so instead of focusing on, getting all of this stuff done, it was making little bits of progress here and there on different ideas, on different projects, and just figuring out what felt right to me. And so allowing myself that room to explore and just experiment and not put pressure on myself to achieve specific results, I think I was able to get much further along the process, even though, externally it doesn't look that way. But, I've really been able to figure out a lot around that and kind of everything I've been doing. So from that standpoint, I am quite happy that I gave myself that room to explore, because otherwise, I feel like I would have ended up down the wrong path by kind of following, so-called conventional wisdom around, staying focused and making sure that you're putting all of your energy into one thing to really achieve results. And I don't think that's necessarily true in a lot of cases. So
there's a lot of similarities almost in what Lobau was saying, are basically getting away from the conventional NT language, basically. If I say NT during this for anyone out there, I just mean neurotypical, in case I use it again in the future. But yeah, it's getting away from their kind of way of, oh, well, it's got to look like this. I mean, I remember when I was, for anyone out there, I was an elected politician. I know we're meant to be hated. But back in the day when I was doing that, I remember having one of the other people that was elected with me getting really annoyed with me, basically because I hadn't told everyone what I'd been up to. I was like, yeah, but I just did it. Like the person that was helped knows that I did it. The person that was helped is happy. So yeah, but you've got to tell everyone. I don't know. I don't care. Like, and it is getting away from that kind of idea of like, no, you've got to do this in this way because that's what everyone else does. And I think it is something that that we as neurodivergent people do mess with that logic a lot for people, because we're like, no, that's not how I want to do it. That's not how I can do it. If I try and do it your way constantly, like you said, you'd have been down a rabbit hole. You'd have ended up going in a weird direction that could have like meant you actually didn't do anything. It may have looked better to the outside world, but it looks better without anything happening. It's that kind of problem, but that's good. Mechi, I can kind of guess this one, but go on. Oh, sound's gone, Mechi. Oh, no. No. Oh, this is good. This is definitely a neurodivergent chat. This is the start of this.
Do you think we'll have the disco?
Yeah, whatever you are using for your audio is not working, Mechi. Which what's funniest about this is because it was absolutely working a minute ago. And what's going to be fun? She's going off and coming back on, I think was what that translation was for anybody out there. And if anyone's still watching at this point, no, I'm not going to cut this out, because we should going and out. Yeah, because this is one of the things I actually hate about podcasts and about people when they talk about mental health, and when they don't show the messy things. I think that's the point, and that kind of for me underlines mental health, and that actually underlines almost what Leo was saying is when we need to show the messy stuff. We need to go, you know what hasn't worked? That shit. Not all of us are an Instagram filter. We're not the outcome. We're the other stuff that's going on in the background. So when it goes wrong, I think we should show people, because I think that's one of the biggest things and proofs in mental health. It was like us going, you know what? Nah, this doesn't work a lot of the time. It goes wrong. You know,
and that goes against. There we go. I don't want to take away her connecting audio. So,
it goes against what people want to happen. No, we still can't hear Mechi.
Mechi, is it AirPods? You have AirPods? Okay. Do you have a AUX cable set of earphones? It might. I mean, it might.
There's me just having nothing like that. I'm just using the audio from the actual computer.
Like a caveman.
Hey.
I've had this.
I mean, hey, I can put on.
So
I
many
can put on
times,
my I can put these on, but you know they're not quite as. I don't know about the color scheme for this, but
Leo, you'll think this is funny. So guess what? I also got for Christmas a couple of these, the AUX headphones that go into
getting everyone ready. We clearly need to send some to Mechi, but I mean, we can have a chat whilst Mechi is sorting this out. But I mean, this is the point, like you say, Lobau. This is the stuff that people don't see.
Yeah, but I edit, but the reason that I edit is not to cut the messy stuff. It's to cut it down to a certain amount of time that I feel people will listen to more. And that's it, because like for my condition, it is way easier to see 59.65 minutes or whatever. But if I see an hour and 45 minutes, I'm like, okay, I will wait until I have time to do that. And then that causes me not to go back and do it. And that's what so it's hard because I don't like the whole editing thing, but I like editing also. Like, I like it. It's fun for me to edit. Like
I think there's two different things at play, right?
Yeah.
So editing can serve a purpose. And when you're really trying to create a story out of it, I've started to gain a lot of appreciation for editing from the like creative side of it and trying to get things to align to get this nicely told story. But that being said, I think there's too much of a focus on having that nicely told story. And so I'm much the same way. I like to do very just raw videos, show the messiness. I will show the chaos. And that's something that I really focus on because I'm 100%. I think we need to show more of that because people see these nicely told stories and they're like, oh, you just do steps 1, 2, and 3, and then you achieve outcome 4, and it's this magical fairy dust experience. And no, it's not. That's not how any of it works.
Yeah, I mean, that's it's weird because
ugly.
I very rarely get asked this question, but I did go on someone's podcast, and I won't say who it was, but I went on someone's podcast to talk about the charity and myself as a mental health facilitator. And beforehand, they were like, "Do you like? I'll send you the questions." Like, I don't want to see the questions. I don't want to know the questions. Like, do not send me the questions. Do not give me an idea of what they're even going to be on. I do not want to see it because I can then edit myself down. I can make myself go, well, I'll say this. No, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm really bad for this. Like, a lot of it's down to my memory because I have a neuroidetic memory. So I tend to just do it that way. So I don't do things in the normal way like that. But it's like, even when I gave my mother away, because I gave her away to my stepfather, I just started talking. I gave a speech at her wedding. I just started talking. I didn't write anything down. I was my dad's best man. I just started saying stuff, and that's the thing. And that's how I do things because that's what I want people to see. If I have to edit, if I have to go into it, it's like, no, I'm going to self-edit, and you're going to see that I went wrong. It's one of the things I said about giving speeches, because I used to go around teach people how to give speeches, is the ums and the ahs are far more natural and far more authentic. When people go, you can't say you can't say art. No, do it. I want to see that you're real. I want to see that that's genuine. Do that, How are we doing, Mechi?
Can you hear me now?
I hear a voice.
I'm sorry. I'm going to put, is this better? Like this?
Oh, wait a minute. No, now you're sideways. You're fine.
Okay.
I did 2 podcasts.
I'm so sorry.
Chris, who is a massive YouTuber, and she did it on the phone both times. So do not worry, you are fine.
I'm sorry. Oh my God.
So
sorry, everybody.
Hey, like, to be perfectly honest,
you're fine.
This is also something to point out in the editing. There's a whole conversation we just had about inbuilt editing in our own lives and the issues we have with messy mental health that we wouldn't have had if I cut that out. So actually, it brings on more discussion as well. So, hey, life being messy can also be a bit of a gift sometimes. Don't apologize for it. So, what about for you this year? What are you most happy you've done? What are you, glad to have done?
Okay. Yeah, I thought about it. In fact, I was thinking about it yesterday, and it has a lot to do with what you thought I was going to say, but it's actually not that. It's just letting go and going with the flow, something that I never done before. I was always like obsessed with productivity and looking for videos and coaches and people who taught me how to be more productive, how to get more done, how to maximize my results, how to make money, how to this, how to that. And if you go into my house, you'll see, like, I don't know, I have probably more than 10 planners, and yeah, it's just, and then Google Calendar and Notion and this and that. It's terrible. It's a lot. And I never noticed how much anxiety that gave me. So this year, first, I don't know why, but for some reason, I decided to just let go and relax a little bit and go with the flow. And that's why when I talk to you, probably if that would have been like last year, I wouldn't have like just talked to you and then hung up and book a ticket to Italy, just like so, without even giving it a thought, because no, I haven't planned it yet. And I noticed that I got more results out of it. And not only that, I'm also not so anxious as I used to be before, because having everything under control, it's not always something that you can do. So once you let go and you go with the flow, in a very weird way, things start to make make sense. For example, it's not like my business started to go wrong once I did that. No, in fact, it didn't, because things were going better. And I even ended up like making more sales, because I was so obsessed with the numbers. I would have been like, no, I cannot do this order because I have this order and that order. So yeah, I'm gonna say no to this. But like saying more yes, like just trying something new, and just like, yeah, even though it's traveling or accepting an order from, I don't know, something that I wouldn't thought that I was capable of doing, and not planning everything, was in fact better. And it's exciting, because it's like, oh, where's life going to take me now that I'm not trying to control every single thing, like, well, what's going to happen now, so yeah. It's more fun, and it's less stressful. And I was going to say I'm proud of that, but maybe you don't want to say you don't want us to say that. I'm proud of that, because it's something I never thought I was capable of, just letting go. And yeah,
I think it's important for anyone that doesn't know. We all know each other anyway. This isn't just, I haven't just randomly messaged some people I don't know. We all hang out in a neurodivergent chat pretty much every week. And so, we've had chats, and I've chatted with Mechi about, she always wanted to travel. And I just went, well, travel then. It's because that's my way of thinking. But I to an extent, I had to do the whole letting go as well, because of streaming. I was a Twitch streamer for 2 years. It was one of the things that literally kept me from taking my own life was Twitch, because of certain things I was listening to the background 2 years ago when I was, or nearly 3 years ago now, when I was on that ledge. It's one of the things that helped me. And then, there was Twitch messed up. They did something wrong that they can't solve. And it was difficult. And it was a long kind of drawn out process. It's not like I immediately went, yeah, okay, I'm done. Which is for me actually quite, because that's usually my way of doing it. I was going, right, done. I took like a month or so to then go, okay, now I'm done. That's it. And I stepped away from streaming entirely, came back to YouTube, which I had never really left, but I certainly hadn't put as much time into. And so I think there was a little bit of letting go for me, because I think I'd put not all of my eggs in one basket, but I'd certainly stacked up those eggs in one area. So that does seem to be a theme for all of us, that in some way there's something we've kind of had to let go of. I think certainly the idea of just doing things is a big one. And I, you know, you guys know me well enough by now. That's the kind of the way I do it. I live in chaos, but in a nice chaos, like, which is unusual for someone with OCD and things like that, because people don't think of that, because, you know, people listen to complete bullshit that they see in films, which isn't how it works. For most of us, our mental health issues, strangely enough, happen in our head, not what you see someone turning the lights on and off for 20 times. That's like 5% of OCD, and for any other behavioral stuff, that's the issue with it. It's what we actually have going on up here, which is always interesting when people go, it's all in your head. It's like, yeah, so is the ability for you to talk and walk and run and learn is all up here as well. What the fuck are you on about? So like, yeah, I do like kind of living in the chaos, and I think I've attuned the way I think, and actually some of it's inbuilt as well, to live better in that than in a still kind of vacuum. And I think it'd be very difficult. I've tried to do one thing at once, and it's a nightmare. I remember when I was at university, I used to do my essays, my assignments were done. I started them. Actually, I'm worse than that. Any of my lecturers from the University of Kent, I looked at the essay title on the day it was due. That's when I didn't know what the title was before then. And I would write, I mean, the worst I did was I wrote 3 essays in one night, for 3 different subjects. But the one time I did it once, where I decided, actually, I'm going to write an essay beforehand. I'm going to do what everyone else is doing. Everyone else is telling me that. And I tried to do it. And it's almost like trying to live in an NT's world. I went, no, I'm going to give myself a month. I'm going to write this well in advance. It was the lowest grade I got for my entire time at university, because my mind could not live in that world. It couldn't do, okay, you've got to do it like, oh, and you know, you're rewriting it. I never rewrote anything at university. And when I did, it went wrong, because that was my mind doing it. You look like you wanted to say something there, Leibel.
Well, yes and no. In terms of the, do you think that that you prepare all along without knowing it until you get the day that the essay is due? As in, do you feel like you are preparing all along the way, but you don't know it yet until you get that, and then all of a sudden you can just do it because of the experience of not doing it? If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I think there's a kind of yes and no in that. Yeah, I mean, I'm
right. It's hard. Like, this is going to be a horrible explanation, but it just is. But it's almost, I really feel like some of us set things up in our minds so far in advance, but have no fucking idea we're doing it until the day we have to do it. But then that all comes to the forefront of the brain. That's why we move so fast.
Yeah, I mean,
so I actually do that intentionally. That's exactly how I approach it.
I love it. I love it.
And it's something that I've learned how to do. And so one of the things I found is that because I'm much the same way. I cannot do it like spaced out and like do the repetition. It's like, no, it's going to get done once. And, you know, there's a quote that I think kind of speaks to this a little bit, and I think it was Abraham Lincoln. I could be wrong on that one, but essentially he said, you know, if you've given, you know, 6 hours to cut down a tree, I'll spend the first 5 sharpening the axe, right? And I think for a lot of us, that's exactly what we're doing. And so that when the time comes to have to perform, we just do it. And so that's why a lot of times I'm okay with putting things off in this idea of procrastination, because it's really, I'm putting things into my subconscious. So a lot of times I'll like, okay, I need to figure out how to do this thing. And since I have to do this thing, I'm going to go off and do this entirely unrelated thing. And that gives my brain the space to figure it all out for me, so that when it does come time, I'm like, okay, I've got to get this done. Like, there's the answer. Like, it kind of comes to me. And I think giving yourself the space to do that and not relying on having to consciously figure it out really allows us to process things differently. And I think that's why we can thrive in that chaos, because there are always things happening in the chaos that maybe we don't actively perceive, but it's all there. And so that chaos is just more information, more fuel for us to thrive in. And so, like, I can't function if I don't have enough chaos. If you put me in like this very still situation where it's like, oh no, you just have to do this one thing, that's all you have to do. Like, no, that's hell. That is torture. Like, don't do that to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I live in the same thing. I think for me, there's an element of I'm always prepared for the situation, but with those essays, I couldn't prepare for what it was because I never read the essay titles. So I didn't know what the options were. I didn't know what it was. Like, obviously I know what the subject is because I've been learning it, but I had no idea what they were going to ask. So there's an element of, that's why I say yes and no. Like I'm prepared for the situation. I'm not prepared for the subject. So
okay, got it.
I'm like, so I remember at university, they had to go at me at one point because I wasn't doing a bibliography and I wasn't basically referencing my work. This was only in the first year when I was, just didn't care. And my response was to say, well, I didn't look it up. And I hadn't, I'd just done it from memory. And they didn't like that because you're not meant to be able to do that. That's not how their mind works. So therefore, that's not how it works. And I was like, well, that's how I'm doing it. And they kept having a go at me until I simply said, okay, fine. And I started referencing the only books I had on my shelf, which was The Life and Times of Muhammad Ali and The Dragon Within or something like that by Bruce Lee. And I would literally just put that in my bibliography every time. I'd never quote from it. I'd just say I'd used it. And they never questioned me again. And I think that's where we definitely differ, NTs and NDs, because that was they just wanted it to be there because it's performative. And I'm there just going, well, it didn't fucking matter, did it? Like nothing changed. I just added some words that meant nothing. And that's the problem, because that's why we're constantly having to put up with their bullshit, because it's this idea of like, yeah, but you need to show us this. No, I don't. I know it already. Why do I need to show you that? No. I remember, solving an algebra equation in my A-level class and him accusing me of cheating, even though he just put it on the board. I'm like, how could I have cheated? It's from your head, you idiot. Like, that's not how that works. What did I cheat? What did I come into your dreams at night? What the fuck are you on about? And that's the problem. We start to live in their world, and we live in their world for too long. And I mean, anybody that's known me for long enough is like, well, you were never any fucking different. What are you on about? But I think there was definitely a turning point from when I was younger. I think I was a lot more accepting of that. And I think I don't know entirely. I know I can tell, certain points where I've got far more, fuck you, I'm doing it this way. But I couldn't pinpoint in my younger life what the turning point was for me to go, yeah, no, I'm not that. But I'm sure there definitely was, because I was a good little choir boy when I was a kid. I'd go to Sunday school, I'd sing in the church choir, I'd have the whole white robes, fully traditional. I lived up to the NT world. But then at some point, it could have been the split of my parents, I just went, no, not anymore. I'm not doing that. And I've always been the one through university and things like that irritates certain people, because
isn't it crazy how we all come back to the same place? Like, when you say that, you make me think. When I was a child, I was also a pretty good child. I never caused my parents any problems. Then when I grew up and I was a teen, I would purposely do everything the opposite way. Purposely. Yeah, I did go through punk like a punk not stage
Tell us you had a pink mohawk, Mechi, come on.
Yeah, I have that moment in my life, punk rock, dark gothic, all of that. But in a way, when I'm thinking about it, why I was actually doing everything the opposite way. Like, if a teacher told you to do this, I would do the opposite. My dad told me to do something, I would do the opposite. My mom, the opposite. All the time, with every single person, I always wanted to do the opposite. Then, like you say, maybe I did buy into the anti-bullshit, like, yeah, if you do this, you're going to be successful, so you should probably do this, and I started trying to control and manipulate every single thing in my life. And then I started to rediscover myself, and I actually found out that maybe 13-year-old me was right. And yeah, I don't have to do everything people expect of me. And yeah, life can go on, and you can do good things, and you can have like good outcomes even if you do the opposite. In fact, sometimes you get better outcomes if you do the opposite. So it's
I
crazy
have
how
a theory
we
on that.
back to where we were as kids.
Yeah, I actually think there is something to that, and I've very much found the same thing. It's like growing up, through school, like you kind of hit this period of like early adulthood where you're just like, okay, I'm just gonna like kind of do what I want and follow whatever crazy path I feel like going down. And then you're like, oh shit, no, I've got to actually follow the rules and like be an adult now and all these things. And then like you do that for a while and you're like, no, this is bullshit. Like I'm going back to where I was before. Like that was way more fun. And I think for me, it's like I think that is really the basis for a lot of the so-called midlife crisis, right? But for a lot of neurodivergence, our crisis tends to be faster because we're just better at stuff, so we get there earlier. So it may show up in
we have our
20s
breakdowns
to
in our
30s.
mid-20s.
Yeah, right. And but I think there really is something to be said for that, because it's like there's so much pressure to conform to all these different societal rules and like norms and behaviors, and they don't make any goddamn sense. And so it's like you spend so much time and energy trying to follow them, and you're like, actually, I could just start doing things my own way, and I'll be done way earlier. I'll be way happier, and I'm going to be way more successful doing that. So yeah, I'm just going to go do that now. And I think we really do like need to get people to see that like you don't need to follow the so-called norms because they don't make any goddamn sense. They're the average, and nobody is exactly average. It's like you've got to figure out exactly what works for you, and that's really where you're going to be the most successful and the happiest.
Well, the best thing about average for me is explained. I think it was World War II. And I can't remember if it was British or American, but one of us built our fighter planes for the average. No one could fit in it. So basically we made it for the average person, and the average didn't work. And that's kind of the point, is the average doesn't fucking work. So why are we making it to that?
Yeah. Can I ask you one thing about what you said about
you can call me Adam here, by the way, if you want to. Because
okay, Adam, sorry.
Don't do that. That's weird.
I'm so used to up, and I know. But,
I know. Yeah. Sorry, Adam.
For anyone out there, just quickly, me when I'm online as a facilitator and when I'm on Twitch, I am up for the challenge. Obviously, because it's a charity, everyone knows my name. I am not faceless anymore. But yes, just for anybody out there going, well, who the hell is he talking to? But yeah, go on.
So, you did really well in school, though, right? Like, I mean, you would show up, or the day of the exam.
Early school, no. So,
well, not in early school, but in college or whatever. I mean, you wrote the essays, you got great grades. So,
I mean, I got. My first university degree, I didn't do that well, but I did get elected as a politician because that's where I was actually spending my energy. So I did, but again, I got them, and that didn't change when I did my masters. Sorry, Ian. That was my dissertation supervisor. But it didn't change when I did my masters. I did it exactly the same way. Even sections of my master's dissertation, I would do them and move on. I wouldn't rewrite them, And to his credit, and I'll big him up here. Dr. Ian Mackenzie at the University of Kent knew that. I mean, he'd been one of my lecturers as an undergrad, and he knew full well that's the way I worked. And so we'd have our meetings as you're meant to meet with it, and he'd basically just gonna go, yeah, that's good. Maybe change that, but like there wouldn't be really any, like with a lot of people, you'd be like, you might be, yes, we've got to rewrite, and you've got to, and he wasn't like that with me. He allowed me to be a reference for myself because of my expertise in something actually meant I could reference myself in my own dissertation. He was like, yeah.
My only, I guess, reason for asking that is I think that the world accepts people that do it different if they're high performers.
I would argue everyone that
It's-
does do it their way is a high performer.
School
that's
doesn't
what I'm
measure
saying.
high performers.
It-
School
but-
measures conforming.
Well, that's
But that's what I'm trying to. That's what I'm trying to say, and I'm saying it terribly, of course. But I'm going to calm down and not say it in a way
No,
that angers. But what I'm saying is like, so you got the topic the day of the exam or the day of the essay or whatever it is. You did really well. They accept that because you did well. Whereas, they accept your method of doing it because you got a good grade. The problem is, I think, just personally, that later in life, like in real life, what we are graded on as neurodivergence, if we do it our own way, like Leo said, we are the top performers.
Yeah.
I think. But when you're told for 25 years that, because for me, I did shitty as hell in school, horribly. I mean, it didn't matter if I read the topic a year in advance. Like, there's no fucking way I'm doing it. But to the rest of the world, if you do well on that grade, it doesn't matter how you do it. But for some of us, it does, because then all of a sudden you fail, they criticize the way you do it. If you do well, they don't.
Well, I mean, the only thing I'd argue,
in my opinion,
the only thing I'd say on that is, like I say, my undergrad, no, I didn't do well. My time was spent somewhere else, obviously, but then there's no reason the university would know that. One or two of my lecturers did, obviously, because they voted. Like, okay, I can't say they voted for me, but one of them literally lived in my constituency. Like, I saw his wife walked past me to vote. So they knew that's what I was actually doing, and but that's why I didn't do well, because I didn't give a shit. But what I will say is, but because I didn't do as well in my undergrad, I shouldn't have been allowed on the masters because of that. And it wasn't until after my undergrad that my mind suddenly went, right, academics. And I could always do it, but I never accepted that I could do it. And it was only afterwards when I just went, actually, no, I can do it. And because there were people like Dr. Ian McKenzie, who were the people that were letting you on for the masters, went, of course I'm letting you on. Like, yeah. And I proved it. By then I did achieve well, and I did do well. And I got I got the high grades in my masters to kind of go, yeah, look, I was just fucking around in my undergrad. I did prove it then, but that was down to other people that were accepting. And granted, you need those people around you.
Right. And that was kind of my whole thing. Like, I know I explained it horribly as always, but but it seems to me like the world will accept different if the results are high.
That's true. I mean, my way,
and that's what I'm struggling with.
I get that. I think the way of looking at it, I think that's changing, because I think with Gen Z, what's happening, I'm sorry, every English person out there, I said it like that, I apologize. So Gen Z. Basically, I think what's happening is, us as Gen Xers and millennials are going, you know what, we're starting to realize what we did and how we fucked ourselves up. And that's why a lot of the Gen Zers, Gen Zs are there going, no. From like day one, they're just going, no. Like they've still got things to learn, and obviously they're going to muck up, but they are literally to the people in authority going, no, fuck you, from day one. And it is nice to see, and it's hilarious when you get a lot of people that don't like it, because they're just going, well, yeah, because we've been playing by your rules for so long, and it's not your rules anymore.
Right, and that's what I think Leo does so well. Is what Leo does is say, well, who grades the results? And I think that is like, what's your, who's giving you the grade?
Yeah, it's
that I think that's what I've learned from him the most. Sorry, I'll shut up now. I'm sorry.
That's good though, because it does come down to that, right? Like, it is about who's giving you the grade. And I'm a big believer in, like, if somebody wants to be good at something, they're going to figure out how to be good at it in their way. And so, but school doesn't measure that. They expect very linear performance and like, oh, you need to do this. And to prove that you know this, you'll have to do this completely like bullshit assignment that mocks up important pieces. And then it doesn't, I did terrible in my undergrad because like I couldn't care about it. And like literally they kicked me out of school and I had to take time off and go back. And then I went to get a master's and like I aced everything because it was something I was actually interested in. It was like I could focus in on like, oh, this is important. We're doing real stuff now. Right. And I think that's so much of school is like, we're going to keep you away from the real stuff just so you can like play in this little sandbox over here. But life is lived outside of the sandbox and like you kind of create your own sandbox. And so I think it really like, again, we need to get to this point where people can see that, you know, the results in life aren't on a grading scale. The results are measured differently. And in fact, they are very much measured to whatever grading scale you decide to make for your own life. And so if it doesn't matter if the professor is giving you an A, it matters if you're giving yourself an A. Because that's the part that matters the most, because you're going to figure out what that means to you. And when you figure out how to do it for yourself, your impact on the world is going to be what it is truly like. It's maximized at that point because you care and you're going to put in the effort and you're going to get as good as you want to be at something to achieve the outcomes you want in life.
It's why we both, you know, as you said as well, we both did better in our masters because that's when the mind just switches to do it. And it is quite funny because I think there is an assumption, like you said, Lobau, of the, you know, must have done well in undergrad, must have done well in school. But it is quite funny, and I, you know, this may be a very assumptive comment, but I would think of our group externally as well. Me and Leo are probably the ones that are considered to be the most academic or scholastically able. And we are both the ones that have admitted we did fucking bad in our undergrads. It wasn't until we actually gave a crap. And that, I think that's the difference, is that just because you can be the most scholastically able, you can be the one that's academic, you can be able to do something, but at the same time, in the confines of the specifics that they want, still do badly, because you didn't give a shit. Like for me, for my master's, for instance, my master's was so specific, it doesn't exist anymore because they couldn't get enough people to do it. Like my undergrad was politics, my master's degree, and I, you know, I'm studying others and stuff as well, but this is my original degrees. I did politics, but my master's was political theory and practices of resistance. It was very specific. And I enjoyed that because it's on the it was on the political philosophy side, which I'd picked up, and the theories, and I liked that. So that's when I started going, hey, I can do this. I like discussing, as most people can probably even tell on here, I never shut the fuck up. So that was something that was helpful to me. It wasn't necessarily helpful, and because people didn't necessarily understand any issues I had or anything else, it wasn't helpful in my undergrad, but it was in my master's because they're like, great, you know, this is, even you talking is part of resistance, you know, everything in it. But I think that's something that people, and anybody out there that's thinking, I don't know, you know, I haven't looked to see what the age ranges are, but if there's anyone at the university at the moment, you're thinking, I'm doing bloody awful, that doesn't make you any, it doesn't make you any less smart, which I have issue with anyway. It doesn't make you any less capable, anything like that. You know, as I said, the two, and again, assumptive, the two most, you know, academic and educated people by certain standards in a group that we know are the ones that did not do well on that first level. But if you get to the next bit and go, you know what, this is amazing, I love this, go do it. That's why so many people, we have a university in the UK called the Open University, which is an amazing university. And you tend to see a lot of employers love the Open University because of the way that it's structured. It has a lot of mature students. And it's when people are like 30s, 40s, 50s go, I'd like to study that. And then they do amazingly well because they actually want to do it, rather than, oh, well, I'm 18. I've got to go to university. That's what I do at 18. Yeah, okay, but not really, you know, and that can be problematic. I think it's finding what you enjoy doing and going from there. You know, it's why it's why I'm the way I am. It's why Leo's the way he is. It's why Mechi, you're the way you are. It's why Lobo, you're the way you are, because that's something we need to find in ourselves. And I think, Lobo, you have a tendency of putting yourself down in this.
I've always done that.
Yeah, but
here's the thing, though.
No.
I also do the exact opposite.
You do, but you don't do right. You do, but you do it on a sliding scale. So you automatically go, I am crap at this, but I'm amazing at this. My point is, I'm not separating the two. And I've said this, and you know, when I sent the book, sent an excerpt from the book I wrote over. My point was always with things like that is, you can read it, you can understand it. It's not that you can't do it, it's that you don't care enough about the stuff that you were doing to actually engage. That's the difference.
And that's exactly what we do. I mean, that's it. Yeah, we both preach.
If you did
care about it.
Say, I just mentioned Open University. They do an open degree. I fully believe, for instance, if you wanted, you went, I'll go and do a degree on just some random stuff, which is actually how they do it in America anyway. Give a weird system. But you just went, you know what, I'm going to do a load of random stuff that I enjoy. I fully believe that you would absolutely do well at university, but you didn't want to and you didn't care about it, so you didn't.
Right.
But then you hold it over yourself as being something you can't do.
No, I don't hold it over myself.
But it's something you bring up.
I bring it up so that other people might relate to it by saying, like, hey, by the way,
battering ram against yourself, though, because you said there, you literally apologized, which you know I fucking hate anyway. You literally apologized several times because, oh, well, I'm probably explaining it badly. I'm doing about why? What? We didn't say that. We didn't ask you to say sorry. We didn't ask you to apologize. We didn't say you'd done it badly. Yeah. You assumed, because that's the bullshit. And it comes a lot, I think, as well.
Well, it's because I look at facial expressions instantly and I can see where people might not understand what I'm saying. And that's where I say, oh,
facial expressions isn't going to help us in an ND world, my friend.
Well, it can help you read people.
But reading me and Leo will not work.
Yeah, no, my facial expressions, like, literally, if I'm not consciously thinking about them, I don't know what I'll do with my facial expressions, which is, it's always fun. When I'm just like, why are you doing that? I'm like, I'm doing what? Like, I don't know.
And by y'all's facial expressions, I just meant ups, but yes. I get it. Like, look, I get it. Yes, I have always had a history of self-deprecating humor. But the thing is, it doesn't like hurt me consistently, because I mean, all I do is talk about the great things and the motivational stuff and the whatever. Sometimes it motivates the living shit out of me when I say, I have the confidence to say, I suck at this. Sometimes I think it's important to recognize where you suck and where you're good. It's not that we're all great at everything. We got to have some sort of understanding of where our weaknesses lie. Like, you know, and
where we want them to is what I've always believed.
Well, it's not that I want my weaknesses to lie in a certain area. I would have loved to have had a master's, but
that's my point.
But
that I think.
But the thing is, no, I absolutely could. Yeah. I don't fucking want.
But that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Right.
So I'm like torn between both of you guys, because
it's because both of us are saying the same thing. We just have a different way of describing it.
You guys are actually not saying the same thing. I am with you, Lobo, in the sense that, I mean, there's some things I think I could never do. I could never do a backflip, even if I tried a million times. Probably. Maybe yes, I don't know. But on the other side, guys. Like
we're hiring an acrobat to teach Mechi how to do a backflip. I will find someone in Argentina.
I like that. I like that idea. I think we should go that route.
Hey, New Year's resolution.
You need a trampoline, a trainer. You're good. You have to keep going. If you want to do something, you'll be able to figure out a way to make it happen.
Eddie Hall.
But wait, at the same time,
can do it.
And the foam blocks. The foam blocks.
At the same time, I am with Ab and with Leo when they say that, probably you're not good at something you don't care about. For example, me, at school, every single year of my existence, I would end up going to summer school for math, because I hate math. And like every time the math teacher came in, I was like, all of a sudden my brain was out. Like, seriously, I wouldn't be able to listen to her for like 5 minutes straight. And my brain, it's like, it's lazy for math. If you ask me to do, I don't know, like whatever, a calculus or a sum or anything, my brain's like, no, I'm not gonna do it. But the crazy thing is, every time at summer school, I would end up studying what all of my all of the other students studied over the year in a week, sometimes even under a week, because like Adam, I would do everything at the last minute, and guess what? I learned it. I actually knew math. It was just I didn't want to study that. I couldn't pay attention because I didn't know I had ADHD, and I never liked maths. So it's a little bit of both of them. I mean, you have to want to do something in order to be good at that. But maybe there are some things that probably you're not meant to. Why even bother trying? Like, if you don't like math, fuck off. I mean, why even try? You don't like it.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the thing. It's, like, I mean, it's that idea of like, you know, there's so many people that failed at school, the subjects that they ended up being known for. You know, Einstein failing at maths. There's a chef over in England called James May who failed cookery at school. He's had several cooking shows. He's a well-known chef with decent restaurants, and you know, it's like, oh, you failed me at school, did you? It's almost like, and I think that I do think this happens more for NDs than NTs. It was that, oh, you failed me. Like, fuck you. I've got to do the most to prove you wrong now. Like now it's my life's mission to just prove you wrong. Just that one teacher. Like,
oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of us, and I do think it happens more with neurodivergence, that it can be an idea. I mean, I don't know. I think it's we have this idea of just going, you know what? You said I couldn't do something. I now have to actively show you as wrong. You know, it's just something we do. And we've just lost Labau's just got to take a quick break there, but we should have him back in a minute. But yeah, I think it is interesting the way we do it. And you know, like we said, schools do not tell you anything. I mean, we can go on any kind of way of doing things. You know, schools are not a measure, because I think if anyone has seen Sir Ken Robinson, who's a fantastic educational lecturer, sadly passed away now, but he used to do TED Talks and various things. He would always say that the education system is set up to create educators. That's all it's for. It's there to make you into what they are. And he tells a story of someone he went to school with, who, whenever there was a class on, she'd just dance. She just wouldn't give a shit. She'd just dance in class and be like, yeah. And just couldn't make her do any work. And they finally called her in, and they saw an educational psychologist and brought parents and everything. And the psychologist was like, right, can you leave me with her? We'll see what's going on. And basically she, you know, when they called the parents back in, she just went, there's nothing wrong with your daughter. She's just a dancer. It was as simple as that. It's just like there's nothing wrong. And I think that's also the point with neurodivergence as well. There's nothing wrong with us. It's just that we don't work the same as you. We don't interact the same as neurotypicals. We don't think the same way, you know, and people don't like that because you're meant to fit a box. And I think it's,
and also, sorry, go on. Go. So talking about that, it's just you were talking about education. Leo also was talking about what they educate you for. I couldn't stop thinking about another brick in the wall, but like seriously, and even like corporations, and you know, I hate the 9-to-5 thing, and that they train you to be another one. And the crazy thing is, when you do your thing and you show that you're more creative, you end up doing better everywhere, at school, at uni, in your own life, if you are a business owner or, you know, an entrepreneur, or even if you work in an office, because when the shit hits the fan, you need creative solutions. And guess who has the best solutions when it comes to creativity? People who think outside the box, people who probably they don't follow the rules, or they have their own mind. So sometimes, I don't know if there's people here listening and they're going through, I don't know, they're studying at uni or whatever, and they're going through a hard moment, or they're probably rethinking their career, yeah, you might, like, for example, me, I studied to become a translator. I'm not a translator anymore. Like, fuck off, I'm not gonna do that. Because I found out that I like writing more, so I'm gonna do that. So a title doesn't define you, and it doesn't define your future either. So
no, I mean, it is something that's definitely changed as the generations have moved on. You know, you always get older people, not everyone, but it is an older generational thing of like, yeah, but you're meant to stay in your job because a career was, you know, in their day, career was for life, and that's it. And the idea of us is going, no, I'm going to do this. No, I'm going to do that. Especially when, you know, and I get it a lot because I do tend to do 2 or 3 jobs at once, 2 or 3 things at once, because that's just the way I am. As Leo was saying, I need that. I can't function with one thing at once. That doesn't work for me. And so it does mess with certain people because you don't fit, which I always found really weird, because if we look at most of the biggest breakthroughs in history, when people who, you know, when psychologists and historians, everyone have looked back on them, 99% of those people would be classed nowadays as neurodivergent. So our society is based on people whose society itself doesn't treat like they're normal, which is weird as fuck. The fact that, you know, that we are talking like this, there's no way in living fucking hell that Turing was not neurodivergent. It's just no. Turing was one, like, there may be a psychologist out there that wants to correct me. Please come on to the podcast and chat that with me. But like, the fact that we can talk comes down to people like that, down to Babbage, down to, you know, these are the people that literally discovered and created what neurotypicals then used to tell us we're weird. Like the amount of podcasts and people out there, the amount of TV shows, the amount of films, the amount of other things on YouTube and everywhere else that just says, hey, you know, you're weird. No, you should just do this. Oh, neurodivergency doesn't exist. All that kind of stuff. And you're going, well, how the fuck did you even get this to be able to talk to us then?
I want to say,
just speak. Just none of this hands up shit. We're not in school.
No.
Sorry.
I don't know about you guys, but I believe that biology, there's a reason for everything, and there's a reason why these genes are still being passed on, because it's mostly genetic. I mean, my mom has ADHD. Well, she never treated it, and before, when I found out, I was like, oh no, I'm fucked. And no, I mean, I'm able to see I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, there are negative things about it, but there are also positive ones about it. So there's a reason why these genes are still going on and on. So if it were that bad, we would have been extinguished already. People wouldn't have like chosen to be another neurodivergent, you know. So
yeah,
there's actually a book on that, I think. Let me see if I could find that. So essentially, I think the hypothesis of the book, and I haven't read it because, you know, ADHD, but essentially it outlines, I think, the neurotypical brain as the gatherer brain and the ADHD brain as the hunter brain.
Yes.
And you know, so it's kind of like these different aspects of, you know, what is most useful. And in a lot of like modern society, on the surface, it looks like the ADHD brain doesn't function well. And that's mostly because all of the structures are to make sure that the gatherers can function in present day society. And so when, you know, the hunters in the society are functioning according to that, they look like low performers because, in fact, they are not doing what their brains are best at. And so when people break out of that, they tend to all of a sudden become high performers because they are, you know, with hunting, there is a very clear result. You've got to figure out, you know, it's very creative. You've got to figure out exactly what the prey is doing. You've got to, you know, do what it takes to get the kill, all of that. Whereas gathering, it's very much about doing the same thing in a controlled environment. You know, you understand how things grow, and so you can set up these structures that very much produce like the same results time after time, because that is a repeatable thing that you can do. And so, you know, it's this creativity versus like consistency. And so understanding like the different aspects of kind of the different ways of thinking about things is very, very helpful. Because then, you know, honestly, they are both necessary to function in different roles, and it's about figuring out what is most natural to you and what role you most want to play, and that it's about kind of building around that, because the beautiful thing about the human brain is that it is actually you know, neuroplasticity is a thing, and you can actually train yourself to do things differently over time. But you know, there one part of that is there's a whole lot more affecting you than you actually have control over. So some of it you could conceivably do some drastic training, but you would have to completely switch the environment in which you live, switch everything about the way you do everything. And most people aren't going to do that. They're going to make very small shifts over time. But the reality is, like, yeah, both types of brains are needed and are very valuable in different roles. And so it's about figuring out, again, it comes down to you're the best fit for you personally, because that's where you're going to excel, not in a role that somebody else tells you that you should be in because that's what they think, and they don't actually have any clue, because most people don't, and they'll tell you anyway that you should do this other thing because that's people.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's why you're brilliant, Leo.
There's one thing we should mention there. When we're talking in terms of mental health issues and neurodivergency are not the same thing. So, if anyone wondering, the charity obviously helps everyone with mental health issues, which can be temporary or ongoing. And you know, we look to do that. Neurodivergency, when we specifically use those terms, are brains that literally function differently. There's neurotypical, neurodivergent. That's, you know, the brain. That's what it's part of. So please don't get it messed up when you think of that. Mental health and neurodivergence are different, and of course there are certain conditions and some mental health issues that do have both sides of it. You can have, you know, I think depression has, I believe, 6 or 7 variations which are thought to be non-genetic, and 2 or 3 that are thought to be genetic. So there is a difference even within something like that as to whether it can be neurodivergent or not, which is why there's an ongoing discussion as to whether neurodivergency and depression can be something that is expressed as the same thing. But that's something that people should be aware of whenever we talk about neurodivergency and things like that anyway. But yeah, absolutely. The idea of just saying, hey, you don't know, you know, you should do this even though I don't know what I'm doing. It reminds me of the Baz Luhrmann song Sunscreen, which has a line that says, most 18-year-olds that I know.
That is such an incredible.
Most 40-year-olds still don't. And that's the point.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to tell you, yeah, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. And then they're having, you know, at the age of 40, 45, 50 going, I really should change my job. Well, don't fucking tell me what to do then if you don't know. You know, that's a big problem that I think we have. But you
also
like...
have a thing too, talking about what you said about neurodivergence and neurotypicals. It's, I mean, for anyone here and who is not listening to this, who is not a neurodivergent, it's not that we hate them, that we hate neurotypicals. I mean, I think we fall on to talk about that because we're all neurodivergent, and second, it's because it's easier for us to have more mental health problems because of what society tells us. But that doesn't mean that, of course, neurotypicals also have the same issues, because, you know, society is hard sometimes because, yeah. But talking about that, mental health, and what this podcast was all about, because, yeah, this is a very ADHD talk. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Talk about that.
Mechi, did you want to finish? Sorry, I'm working on this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Okay.
We'll take that.
For Adam. Yeah. No, I'm not going to apologize, but I do want viewers to know that, like, if you're watching this, the reason I cut out for like 10 minutes is because I have massive sensory issues on screen. As in, if it's one-on-one, I'm fine with that. If I'm trying to look at each, like when one of you is talking, I look directly at you. If the next person starts talking, and sometimes I get, like, my eyes start twitching and I can't, like, look at that. It causes me to think like, oh, I'm having a stroke or I'm having this. I'm not, but like it feels that way. It's the anxiety of it. And I go through that a lot on this, which speaks even more to my credit that I've been talking on Zoom for fucking 2 years. So I just wanted to say that for viewers out there, if you get screen issues, I don't know what the fuck it is, but like it's like a massive panic attack that can be solved by literally just logging out of your computer and just sitting there for like 6 minutes, like with a black screen. I mean, I could hear everything y'all were saying, but I wasn't trying to focus on one, thing or the next. I don't know. I'm going to go get autism test tomorrow, but yeah, I think it happens.
I think, people do have different issues. It's probably one of those things that's also
I can't.
determined if you're neurodivergent. I bet if you go and check, it's probably the wonderful bag of tricks that neurodivergents have to have. Like, yeah, well, because the one thing,
the side effect of medication too.
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, it's always fun when we have neurodivergency, because people, and you'll get this, you'll get people go, oh well, there's so many letters and names you're giving yourself, and it's like, yeah, because neurodivergency and mental health issues don't tend to come by themselves. Like it's like inviting someone to a party. You tell them that, +1. For instance, research suggests that you are far more likely to have autism and ADHD than you are to have either one by itself. That there are conditions that go together, because that's part of it, and then there's a load of other stuff that just tends to fuck with you, because hey, why not? Because it's not like your brain's made it hard enough for you already, let's just make it a little bit worse. But it is always interesting when people go, oh yeah, but we never used to have these. And for anyone out there, firstly, shut the fuck up. Secondly, and I always find this funny, because people are going to go, well, you can't talk like that as a charity. No, you don't want me to talk like that as a charity because of the whole thing we've been talking about. That's not how society, it fucking is. It's not how you want society to work. It doesn't mean it isn't how society does and should work. There's a big difference. And YouTube, I'm looking at you because I know that you push down content that has swearing in it. Fuck you. It's a big issue that...
Hold on. This is an opportunity. We need to create a YouTube competitor that raises videos with swearing and just deprioritizes all the stuff without.
I'll be the front forward for it. I mean,
that would be so awesome.
The biggest issue, and I think it comes...
Best algorithm ever.
I would be at the top of the page every time. But it comes with a lot of other issues though, because I mean, when you have that swearing guilt, I think it also causes issue to anyone that's in a traumatic state, or anyone that's in a really riled up at the time. The amount of times I'm sure everyone here and people potentially watching or listening have heard the words, "I will speak to you when you've calmed down." Fuck off. Fuck off. That idea of when you calm down, I am perfectly calm in my own world. The fact that you can't interact with me is not a fault of mine. That is a fault of yours, not mine. But it is part of what we are told, because we are told that that's the way we're meant to act. We're told the way this is meant to be, and people don't accept it. And the point I was going to say was, so many people always say about the fact that, you all have problems nowadays. We never used to have these. No. We did. We just didn't accept it. Like, are you going to really genuinely tell me that your grandfather, who sat there for 30 years, never talking about the war, never talking about any of the friends that he lost, never wanted to even bring it up, leaving the room when there's certain films on, you're going to tell me he didn't have PTSD? It didn't suddenly come out of fucking nowhere. It existed already. We just didn't say it. We didn't understand it. We didn't know about it. Just because people didn't give it a name doesn't mean it didn't exist. This weird idea of, oh, well, everyone's got everything nowadays. Yeah, and so did you. It's just that we realize it now. We've got names for it. We understand what's going through. And that's what's helping people. It's not, you'll get media that will say, oh, yes, but it's worse now. No, it's the same thing as, guess what? There was a massive increase on people. There's 3 charts that I always find interesting, and people will always push it out, and the media will always push it because it's bullshit. They'll say that when we, I think it's around the mid 2000s, when we started seeing a massive increase in women with autism. We also see in the past 10 years a massive increase of people coming out as non-cis. We also, in the 50s and 60s, see a massive increase in people that were left-handed. And they all pretty much keep the same trajectory. The reason being is we accepted it was a fucking thing. It's not women with autism. The amount of research that exists on only men with autism. The reason we didn't have anything for women with autism, because we didn't accept that they existed. We didn't see any nuances. So we didn't test for it. When we started realizing the test, when we started checking for it, suddenly, it wasn't that people suddenly just got autism. They always had it. We just realized. The same with people that are non-cis. They were always there, and they were struggling, but they never felt accepted enough to be able to come out and say it exactly the same way as people who were left-handed, because they were, you know, this is in very recent memory. You've got to remember, because it was seen as a mental disorder. It was seen by some, if you're in, you know, certain states in the South, as something that should be exercised from you, literally exercised from you. This was seen as a mental disorder, and it wasn't until we just went, actually, people are just left-handed, that we saw an increase. Because, hey, those people didn't suddenly go, you know what? I don't like my right hand anymore. I'm going to start writing my left. No, they didn't. They're always left-handed. It's just that they've been beaten literally every time they would try to use their left hand. And the same thing happens. Progressions in what we accept in society. And that's the biggest problem we have.
Well, that's it. That's exactly like why I put that in the chat or whatever. You could repeat it or not, but like that is, again, what I am most content with this year, is being able to say, like, yes, sometimes I do get that. Like, sometimes I do get so, you know, one thing is my, you know, fucking desktop has like 8,000 tabs open, but in the same sense, it starts to fuck with me to where I think I'm physically unhealthy, where I know I'm not. Like, I know that I'm fine, but when your vision starts to, you know, play tricks on you, that's when I literally have to be like, no, fuck this. I will listen to what they have to say, but I can't see them talking right now. Like right this second, I just can't do that. 6 minutes later, it's okay. And to have the confidence in yourself to tell someone else, this is fucking with me, and not having them take offense to that is what I have learned this year more than anything else.
Yeah, and I think there's a difference. I saw it on TikTok, actually, and I wish I knew who the guy was, but he makes a very good point about boundaries and the way we interact with boundaries, because he said, telling somebody that if they continue to talk a certain way or talk down to you or whatever, saying that if that continues, you will, you know, that's a boundary for you. So that's not making a boundary. Telling them straight off, if you continue, I'm gone, and then walking out, that's your boundary. That's not just going, hey, behave. You're literally going, done. And that's the big difference. And I think it is something that a lot of people with neurodivergence, a lot of people
can do both.
You can warn them beforehand, but that you don't. I think we need to stop letting people off with their behavior in terms of talking down to people. Mechi, just talk. We are neurodivergent. Putting your fucking hand up will get you nowhere. Just talk over us.
That is, you know, I was thinking about that. I need to put up more boundaries, like with everyone in my life, including my clients. And I think, and you know, I was talking to a few friends of mine, and I think that's something other than neurodivergence or not. I think that's something that women struggle more with than men do. And it is something that I've been trying to practice in my life, and it's hard for me to put up boundaries. So this is just a question for all of you. Do you have any advice for people who want to put up more boundaries? Because I feel like my brain needs it, my mental health needs it.
Practice. I mean, you've got
to have, you know, to have more boundaries and respect them.
Yeah, I mean,
that's such a good answer, Leo. I'm sorry, I had to tell Leo that because I practiced. Like, yeah, practice saying, I have blurred vision. I'm not here right now, but I'll be back. Like that. You know how hard it was for me to type that. Like, I don't type that shit ever. Like, I don't. It's
no. I'm out. You do this, I'm out. Bye. Fuck off.
Yeah.
You're talking about that. Oh, that's very easy, but I'll let them go.
I would literally flip the script, because you're talking about it in terms of I'll let people in, and then no, I would do it the other way around. Think of yourself as or your time as being a restaurant. People make reservations. That's it. You know, people make reservations. People will come in when you want them to. They can spend time for you. You're not a library, you're a restaurant. I think that's the way of looking at it. In one of them has a rule: don't talk, don't be loud. And so, but they've already allowed your time. But the restaurant goes, no, you'll have my time when I want you to have my time. And I think that's the way of doing it, is literally completely flipping it. So instead of the boundary, you start with the boundary, and then you decide from day one what's going on, because then you have much more control. And you'll have people go, oh, but you don't make friends, you don't know. Shut the fuck up. Like, I don't care about having mimosas on a brunch with people just because they said something nice to me once. I don't need them to be in my life if I don't want.
But where will we talk about the weather together?
That's just being British, my friend.
Yeah, but what about what about being hungover and wanting a free mimosa? I mean,
it's one of those things. I think people are too used to, and this is definitely something that ND and NT really clash on a lot, is that neurodivergents don't necessarily want your time, and we don't care about how we say it. I think there's a big difference, and not all NDs, and certain mental health issues separate from ND will be different as well. But we're straightforward. We'll just tell you. And NT's world doesn't work like that. Neurotypicals just go, no, but you've got to be polite. No, I don't. No, I don't. I do not have to be nice to you. And I've said this several times. If there's plenty of people out there that can bring me in for interviews, just because you're bringing me in for an interview about the charity or about mental health doesn't mean you have afforded me to be nice to you if you're an arsehole. That's not how that works. You know, if you treat me as someone with neurodivergency, me with someone with mental health issues, or anybody that I interact with in my community in that way, you haven't afforded my niceties just because you're there. I decide if you're in that area, not you. And I think that's the difference. And that's something NDs do a lot more. And I think it's the starting point that should be there for boundaries, is think of yourself as your time and you as a restaurant, not as a library. Because you flip the script on how you're going to deal with boundaries when they're there.
I like the analogy. Never thought of it like that, but it's a good one.
It's a cobble together of random different things, which is most of my analogies, to be fair.
It's really good. Yeah.
Those are the best ones. They stick.
It's hard, but especially for women, like you guys, since we're like very little, you're trained to say yes, not be mad, like, don't get mad. Be a lady. Oh, if I don't want to be a lady, I don't need to be a lady. It's luckily things are changing now, and they have started changing a long time ago. But there are a few patterns that are like harder to break. Yeah,
they've been built up over your entire life, and that's the thing. It's hard to break those patterns because you've been in them forever. And so I think it starts with observation, right? Pay attention to where you wish you could have done better, and then try to do it better next time. And then again, make the observation, set your hours, take reservations, do what you got to do to make it work. It's something that I think the more you let people kind of dictate your boundaries for you, the harder it is to break that. And it's something you just have to figure out how to reset over time, because it's pretty tough to just be like, do a complete like fresh reset over everything all at once. Although if you can do that, I recommend that, I think. But it is tough.
And
my only thing sorry.
No, go.
My only thing to that, Mechi, would be that in terms of helping combat the boundaries and how to describe them and all that kind of stuff to somebody else, is trying to find the people that have no boundaries and that are good at explaining their boundaries, so that you could pick up on something that you might be able to tell them. And then that's exactly what we're doing. Is you asked a question, Adam had an answer. Leo had an answer. My answer is to listen to Adam and Leo. So that's, I mean, that, and like, honestly, that's kind of what works. You got to surround yourself with people that can explain these things in a way that will really help you. And to me, that's kind of all that matters, is that.
I think the thing I'd say is don't change your boundary. So what I mean by that is I am no different in the workplace in terms of how I speak to people, which, you know, not always liked, how I interact with people at all. I am no different. I worked for a university, and I have been in meetings where I just plain said, no, I'm not doing it. You know, oh yeah, but this is the way it's going to be done now. This is what senior management is saying. Good for you. I'm not doing it because it makes no sense, and it's not what people in my area want, and they want to take control of it. You are not giving me the work that they want. That's not happening. And you can tell it to me as much as you want, and you can go to my bosses. My bosses know full fucking well I'm not going to change it. You know, I've had that before. And, you know, I had 2 bosses above me. I got into arguments with members of the Metropolitan Police because they wanted stuff changed because they were them. And I just went, no, because those aren't the rules that are assigned to it. And you're not talking to me any differently. And I'm not going to treat you any differently just because of how you are. You're in my world, and you're going to deal with how I deal with things because you're in my world. If I was in your world, those are your boundaries. Those are your ways of doing things. You're in mine. You deal with it how I deal with it. And that's not a discussion. That's it. And I think that's the problem as well, is that a lot of people have pushed this idea of everyone gets to talk. No, you don't. Not everyone does. It's something the BBC and various people have done really wrong for a long time. And actually, it's something that Dara O'Brien, an Irish comedian, pointed out. And it's something that's very interesting to point out, is that when we look at this idea of how different people interact in certain things, something the BBC and other people try to do is create false equality. And what I mean by that is they'll have someone, you know, they'll talk about, I don't know, someone that's gone to the moon. And then they'll have somebody else on it. It'll be like, hey, well, this person thinks the sky is a carpet. You know, they're not the same. Just because one of them doesn't think something is right, I don't fucking care. You know, if we have someone that's just going to go, well, neurodivergency doesn't exist. Good. Well, you stay over there in your box. You ain't getting in mine. And I think that's something that's important. It's just going to go, you can talk bullshit, but you're not getting in here with me. If you want to come in here and argue with me full on, for me personally, bring it the fuck on, because I don't care. But that's me. That doesn't mean it has to be the case every time, because we have people out there that still think the neurodivergence, for instance, shouldn't exist. We literally have people that think that. Why are they allowed in? Like, that's the thing that I think boundaries should exist as well. Boundaries shouldn't change depending on where you are. And I think the problem is that this idea of allowing everybody this certain amount of starts to break down barriers that we should have in place. The NTs are going, no, but this shouldn't exist. No. It's my boundary. Fuck you.
Right. And doesn't that come back to confidence in saying, like, this is my boundary?
Yeah, I mean,
like, because remember, like, talking about pronouns and all that, you were saying that you have to bring it up. Like, yeah, you've got to, right. So yeah, it's the confidence to bring it up, the confidence to say, like, this is too much, or this,
and that's where it comes
in a certain way.
Yeah, that's where it comes. Like
right.
Leo said, it's that practice, and you know, it's
okay.
Just going, you know what, this is how this is going to come forward because I've practiced this. You know, you've spoken into the mirror 10 times. I mean, how many people have thought about either asking someone out or telling their boss they don't like something? How many people have spoken into the mirror about it? But the thing is that you'll find is when your boundary is right, no one will actually argue with it when it's put in place. Like I said, the way I dealt with things at work and the boundaries of how I'm doing stuff and how I will address you at work got addressed once, maybe, but nobody addressed it after that because of the fact that, oh, well, he's actually doing it very well. You know, for instance, I was put up for an award every single year I worked at that university. Every single year I was put up an award by the students at that university because I talked to them the way that you should talk, and this is why I hate professionalism. I hate the idea of professionalism, but that's a whole different podcast I'm going to have to grab someone for. So, you know, I would talk to people as they should be spoken to, because that's the way I decided I wanted it to be. I didn't want to be part of something else. And I think boundaries and authenticity have to go hand in hand. Who you are and how you act has to be part of your boundary, has to be part of how you act. And I think we try and separate them. And that's what I mean by keeping them the same everywhere, because part of your boundary is part of who you are, because that dictates your boundary and it dictates who you are.
And I think
exactly
neurodivergents do a damn good job of that. I think we do in this, you know, meeting, do a damn fucking good job of that.
But not kind of by default in a lot of cases. It's something that we've had to come to, and you see it in so many instances where people are trying to put on, you know, a front and set different boundaries in different places. And I think those are the boundaries that inevitably fall, because it's impossible to keep up boundaries when they're constantly moving, and eventually they fall. And once someone's, oh, well, you moved your boundary, so it must not really be a boundary. When you really set your boundaries according to who you are, they don't change. And that's just it. And so, you know, like Adam was saying, when you just dictate, like, this is the boundary, there is no negotiation over this. This is not for you to say. This is what it is. And if you don't like it, fuck you. There's no negotiation, because that is just how it is. And there will be no argument over that, because it's not up for debate. This is not a discussion. This is exactly how it is, and you will deal with that, or you won't. And that's up to you. At that point, the ball's in your court. And that's why I think it's so important to be your authentic self, because you don't have to figure out, like, you'll be able to say, this is my boundary, this is exactly where it is. And that doesn't change unless for some reason I decide to shift it down the line based on, you know, my own personal choice. But that is something that becomes, it's you. It's not negotiable, because it's you.
100%. And I think that that's the greatest thing about being neurodivergent, is that what works one day might change. If our boundary is Monday, we have this certain set of boundaries that we're diehard on. Tuesday, it could be completely different. And that's what the world needs to understand, is that's fucking okay.
Yeah.
And you still have to adapt to that, or fuck you, in the words of Adam.
I mean, that's the thing is, as well, is that you always get people that just go, oh, well, I don't like that. And I'm like, we don't have to. And if we go back to the restaurant analogy, you don't have to like my boundary in the same way you don't have to like the menu at a restaurant. You can go somewhere else. Like, go away. You don't like my menu, find somebody else's. You know, and this happens a lot in parental situations, when you'll have parents and their kids that come to loggerheads, because inevitably you will hear the words, but I'm your mother, but I'm your father. And that doesn't give you an authority over me. That does not change this dynamic. Just because you had sex once and I'm the result does not change the dynamic. You are the result of their pleasure. Why am I being treated like I'm something else? That is an issue I will have. Now, I don't have a bad relationship really anymore with parents. I probably did when I was a bit younger, because I was homeless and stuff, but I actually get on well with my mother, and my mother has actually come out very, very good since I moved into the mental health sphere. Was actually, I think, started to discover things about herself, and she's actually been on one of my podcasts. You know,
oh my God, that's awesome. Sorry.
It's the only podcast I did where I didn't swear. But you know, I think that's something that, you know, for me personally, it's okay. But I think a lot of people do have issues with their parents. And I think the thing is that what you've got to remember is you are the result of them fucking. That's it. They didn't sit down and go, well, we're creating Adam today. Well, okay. 6'2", blue eyes. Yes, I think we'll do that. Well, you know, okay, well, broad shoulders. Yes, okay, we'll take that on the menu. I want him to be neurodivergent, because fuck everyone. You know, they didn't do that. They didn't create you to then have power over you. You're not a fucking robot. You are the result of their pleasure. Just because they got off once doesn't mean you owe them anything. And that's a boundary that I think a lot of people do not, and especially in America, don't don't want to admit, because they go, oh, this is my boundary, this is my boundary, this is my boundary. Oh, but it's my parents. So what?
Oh, I absolutely love that analogy. I love that. Being adopted, I'm like, yeah, I hope they had a great time. Like, like I hope they were younger, went out for the night, like, and then put me up for adoption. I've had a great life. Like, this isn't an issue for me to hear you describe it like that at all. As a matter of fact, I fucking love that, because you're right.
Yeah.
It is. They better have had. It better have been fun. I mean, it had to be. Goddamn.
Something that I think so many people, and like you said as well, Leo, people's boundaries change when it comes to their family. It shouldn't. I have siblings that I have not spoken to in a decade. That's their problem. It is not mine. If people want to find different restaurants and different boundaries, go find them. You do not have to be part of my life. Fine. You want to reach out, and you know, if you might have friends from when you're at college, from when you're at university. I'm talking in English terms here, not American. From when you're at school, from when you're wherever, that you fell out because 10 years ago, 20 years ago, your boundaries didn't align. Your tastes, and one of you wanted Mexican, the other one wanted Italian. Okay, but now you're going, you know what? I'm a bit more eclectic. I'm going to contact them and go, hey, yeah, I didn't like that restaurant, but actually, can I have a look at the menu again? You know, that's the way of looking at it and going, you know, my boundaries have changed, your boundaries have changed. Maybe we can actually, you know, there's nothing against things changing in the future, like you said, Lobau. And there's nothing against people that in the past did not fit those boundaries now coming forward and going, yeah, actually, you know, the amount of people that have rekindled friendships from years ago, or even with relationships with family from years ago, because they've suddenly gone, oh yeah, that was me that was the problem. You know, that thing that goes on TikTok all the time. Is it me? Am I the problem? Most of the time, yes. You are, but that's fine. Like, just because you don't like what's on the menu doesn't mean you won't like it tomorrow. You know, we don't all eat the same. I was going to say we don't all eat the same meals every day, but I've just realized we're all neurodivergent. So there probably is some sense of that in our diets. Ignore that one. But you know what I mean? It's that part of it is something that definitely comes forward. You know, boundaries can change, but you need to set that boundary in stone. It's the same as what Leo was saying. That boundary is there, and that's it. There is no debate. And that's what I meant about the difference between saying it or just leaving the room.
And set it every day. Set it every day. Yeah. Because every day changes.
Yeah.
Your boundaries shouldn't.
Yeah,
and that's, but you might have to adapt a certain way of saying it to, like, look, this is too much. You know, I'm doing this.
Yeah. Well, it's like the person in the office that's having a bad day. You don't go up to them and go, hey, how's your day going? Oh my God, coffee. You don't do that, do you? But then the next day, they might. I'm kidding. But they might come in the next day really happy because it's their birthday and they've just got an amazing present, and their energy might hit yours, and then you can do that. But that's understanding people's boundaries, understanding it. You know, that's the difference. That's, you know, new management.
Yeah, that's the difference too. I mean, for me, it's not. I mean, it's not like super hard for me to put up boundaries. I do it. Not that I don't do it, but with some people it's harder, and it's nothing to do with whether they're family or not, a client or not. There are people who, I don't know, it's weird, but because it feels like there are people who are, I don't know how to describe them, but there are people who make it harder for you to put up a boundary. I don't know what is it about them, but there's some people that make it harder. I don't know what is it about.
Okay, well, that's when you ask for manipulative.
That's probably one of the things.
That's when you ask for the floor manager and security, and you throw them the fuck out of the restaurant. Like, yeah, that's the point, and that's the difference. You're talking about putting up boundaries. I'm talking about there being boundaries. I think that's the difference. Again, you're going, I've got to build them. No. They're there. They're there already. You know what they are, but you know, you're not building a restaurant. You're taking over from somebody else's. You know, if we're going to keep that analogy, because fuck it, I'm going to pound it into the goddamn ground. That's the way we're going to go with it. And you're talking about building a boundary, and you don't need to. It's there already. It's just that
Mhm.
there's some people that don't want to accept it's there. But the problem is that, think of it this way, they can keep going, oh, well, I don't accept that, don't accept that, don't accept that. Think of the same thing in terms of that restaurant. Well,
Yeah.
they can keep running into the doors and to the wall, but eventually they'll get concussion. So fuck them. That's them that's going to come off on the worst, not you. Because the building isn't going to get dented. Their head might. Don't build the boundaries. They're there already. Just accept that they're there. See them. They've got to put up with it. It's not, they can dislike your boundary as much as they want, but that's not your issue. Them not liking a boundary has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, just gotta take the restaurant in that case.
Are there certain times though where you have to learn your own boundaries and then start from scratch and build them?
No.
Okay.
Because they're always there.
You think they're always there?
They're always there.
You sometimes have to learn that they're there.
Yeah.
But they're always there.
And by
they might just be
learning-
shrouded and you just run into the wall. Like, oh, there's a boundary there. And so keep note of that.
That makes
and
sense.
then
No, I'm asking
run into
you,
walls all
I'm
over the place
asking
and
you.
figure out where they're
I
at.
think it's more down to the fact that something can feel uneasy.
Yeah.
A person can feel uneasy within your space, and then you go, oh fuck, they got in the kitchen entrance. You're like, that's what's actually happening. Like Leo said, you're finding that barrier is that boundary is there, but
Got
you didn't see it before. And that's what I mean in terms of they just snuck in through the kitchen door. That's all that's happened. That boundary's still there and it was always there. It's just that they've tried to sneak in. Well, now you just, all you're being told is, well, that's a boundary. And if they go, well, yesterday, I don't care about yesterday. That was yesterday. Yesterday doesn't exist. If we want to go into quantum mechanics on time, we can do. But that's not my debate.
No, please.
That was yesterday.
Yeah.
No, I mean to them.
Yeah.
That was
Okay.
that's a debate about yesterday, and you understand, because that's a good way of getting rid of someone. You talk about the quantum mechanics of time, you're getting fucking rid of them. You know, you can
End meeting. No.
Except for me. I'll all of a sudden be in the kitchen.
Benji and I will be so gone, and Leo and,
Oh, it
and
depends.
Adam.
I mean, me and Leo can go for a couple of hours on this, but you know,
Right.
and what I mean is, you can say, you know, that wasn't what was yesterday, but then yesterday isn't here. This isn't yesterday.
Right.
So your idea is no longer valid.
I was just curious in what you
No, I'm not
about it?
having to go. It's just I think that's the thing is
having a go. Yeah.
Boundaries are always there. It's just realizing that they're there, realizing that you're not actually building anything. You are simply recognizing that they're there. It's the same thing as, think of it this way. How comic book nerdy are you? Okay, maybe not. Do you know Wonder Woman's plane? Okay, so
The invisible jet.
right. So Wonder Woman's jet is invisible. So if anyone out there, you might just know the films, but Wonder Woman's jet in the comic books is invisible.
Okay, so manifesto, got it.
Right. So you can't see it. Just because you can't see that plane doesn't make it not there. If you run it, you're still going to knock yourself out. And you discovering that plane being there in the same way as you discover that boundary, you discover that restaurant, it's just discovering it. It's not building it. It's simply going, oh, fuck, what's that? That's it.
But discovery can sometimes be work, can it? I
It can
mean,
be work,
like,
but it's not a building. And I think the difference is that you're not having to build something up. It's just a part of your boundary that you're discovering, and you realize that you're uncomfortable. You're not suddenly going, oh, I need to build this up, because there's a different way of thinking that you switch your brain to for that.
okay, that makes sense. I just feel like it's hard work sometimes to discover things about yourself, and that is building. Building to me is hard. Building is hard work. If you're building a wall or a boundary or whatever, then that's hard. You got to lay the bricks. You got to do the work, and that's something that, like, a self-discovery that you may not have realized yet. I know your point is that you've always known it or whatnot, and it's in your subconscious and whatever, but like, that's hard. And that to me is work.
Yeah, I think some of that comes down to the perspective as well, though.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
So I think I could bring this analogy home. So I think
Good.
sometimes you get people in your life that will knock down those boundaries, and they will break you down to the point where those boundaries no longer exist. And at that point, it is necessary to build them back up brick by brick. And that is a very hard thing to do. And that's why, abuse is so brutal in many cases, because people end up having their boundaries like physically knocked down, and they do need to be rebuilt. And then a lot of times you end up building them in the wrong spot because you're not even sure exactly where they were. And so from that standpoint, like the barriers were always there. Sometimes you get the Kool-Aid guy smashing through, and you need to rebuild, but they were there. And yeah, sometimes you do have to rebuild them.
Leo, I love that so much. And
I think
know why.
The only add-on I'd have of that is to think of yourself as the architect, not the builder. You made the plans, you know where the walls are meant to be. Don't think of yourself as having to build, think of yourself as already knowing where the walls are. So I think when you think of yourself as the builder, then you put more emphasis on yourself and you start to take away the fact that you have no control over it. And I think that's where a lot of people, especially if it comes to abuse and it comes to things like that, is you don't have control over where those walls are going. You don't have control over what it's meant to look like. And I think that's where it can be very hard when you're trying to get those boundaries, because you're not entirely sure where they were or where they are. I would always say that you're the architect. You know exactly where the boundaries are. You put them there. You put them there years ago. You're not the builder, right. You're the architect. And I think that's when it can be not easier, but where you are taking more control over that boundary, whereas the builder doesn't have the control, the architect does.
I just feel like sometimes, honestly, I feel like sometimes, building something is the discovery. I guess, if that makes sense. It's when I discover something new about myself, that took a shit ton of work that I didn't even know I was doing. And then all of a sudden, but that was a lot of fucking work, man. Like, it's, and that's like the last 2 years of this. Jesus, I mean, has this been very difficult? It's been a lot of work, but good Lord, I discovered shit about myself I never knew. But I would never have gotten that discovery or placed those boundaries there if I didn't do the work.
Yeah, I think there's, I would say a lot of it is rediscovery as well. It's stuff that
100%, yes, agree with that. Yep.
The work and the stuff was already planned out. It's just been filed away in someone's filing a cabinet for a while. That's the thing. I'm coming onto this planning. It's definitely the politics side of me, isn't it? It's from when I used to deal with planning.
Beware of the leopard. That's where my plans are located.
I think it is something. I think a lot of us create the work because that, and I think it does come down to an NTND thing, because I think a lot of the way that we are preconditioned by the world around us into thinking is that way of thinking, and that's what makes it harder, because we are preconditioned to say we've got to do this, because we have that 9-to-5 mentality, and it almost tries to sneak its way into our mental health as well, which is very problematic. Which is, when all you need to do is look at Michel Foucault and look at Legree to understand that we don't all see things the same way. And even within ND and NT, we don't have it the same way. It is based on our background. We already have that grid. We already have that plan is there. Yes, there's other things that have come on top of it. There's other things that have been added to the Legree to change the way in which your focus is there. But at the bottom of it is still that plan. It's still that Gree. It's still everything that's built upon it. Which is, I think, Michel Foucault, I'm not a huge fan, but I think there is a lot to be said in terms of Legree and the outlook on your own life within social norms and ideals through the Legree and how you see things. I think that's something that a lot of us need to understand, is that is an individualistic thing. And a lot of us don't like philosophy. And I think actually philosophy and mental health should overlap a lot more, because I think they make sense.
Oh God, yes.
On that note, I do have to bounce, but this has been a fantastic discussion. And are we closing out now? I
was about to close out with basically I was actually after this about to say just a very standard thing of going round the room and asking basically what the new year has in store for you. So as you're now next to me, Leo, we can do you very quickly now so that you can then bow out. So just
okay. Now I've got to stick around, but
yeah, I was gonna say, what in the new year is you're thinking Is there something in the new year that you think you want to work on for yourself? Is that you would like to see happen, or anything like that?
Yeah. So again, kind of wrapping it back around. So the one word theme of 2022 for me was exploration. For 2023, I went back and forth between a few words, but I ended up going with acceleration, because now that I understand more about what I'm looking for, it's about building systems and processes to accelerate the outcomes, and just really building up that support structure to help me get to where I want to go. And so I don't want to define that too clearly, because it's going to be more discovery involved, but it is focused in on, okay, now that I have an idea of what I want to do, how can I do that more efficiently? Because we ain't got time to just sit around and twiddle our thumbs. Got shit to do. So let's do it quickly.
Fair play. I think that's a very kind of
I love that.
There's parts of me that's gonna go, I'm just gonna fucking do something. Like I'm waiting for that. Well, I'm getting a book I did illustrated at the moment. I'm writing another book whilst it's getting illustrated. So that fits. Lobel, what about you?
For 2023, is that what is the number
what's
one?
coming forward? Anything you just like you'd like to see, you want to do, you'd like to see happen, anything basically?
What I would like to see in my own life, and I'm going to be selfish, and that's okay. Turn your own light on first. I brought you a candle, by the way, Adam. But
I have some in the background. Go on.
what I would like to see is me return to the way that I used to do podcasts. I would like to return to that. And that's really hard when you get that momentum going, man. Like you get it going and things are going well and everything like that. When you realize what the fuck you did at first was what worked for you and so many others. So I'm going to try to return to that.
Feel free to, I think, invite any of us as guests. I think we'll probably say yes.
Well, you know what? There will be no video. There will be no Patreon. You will be audio only, and we will talk. Like, honestly, that is my number one thing for 2023 is for the first 6 months of next year, I'm going to go back to the way I used to do it.
It is really,
I'm not.
It's because of the fact I just find it really funny on the podcast thing, because I actively do the visual. So
no, I know. So, but the reason that I'm doing that, can I give you just a short 3 minutes? I know Leo's got to go and whatnot, but so this, the whole highlight reels thing and all that, that's all great and wonderful, and I know that it means something to people, but it really meant something on Christmas Day this year, and I'll tell you why. And it's not because of Christmas or Christ or God or anything like that. It's because one of my best friends since birth, he was getting married in 2023. New Year's Eve of, so basically January 1st of 2024. I've known him my entire life. And his dad had a pain in his back or whatnot, like a week ago. And it comes to find out that he has terminal cancer. He has not a long time to live. His one wish was that his dad, would see him get married. So his younger brother gets ordained as a minister. He calls me up and says, by the way, my dad's going to see me get married. I know that our group of friends cannot be 3 hours away in the town that I live, but I'm just letting you know that it's happening. And all of a sudden I started thinking to myself, well, I have a template for highlight reels. I have a template for just small, short, I love yous. So I sent that to my friends that I've had since I was 10 years old. And we all went down there. And we were there for him when his dad is in bed in so much pain, but he was able to get out of bed to watch his son get married in his own living room with his brother ordained. So in terms of the preparation of things, all the highlight reels, I know they mean a lot to people, but it also taught me a shit ton about like you do something over and over and over and over again, and then all of a sudden something that fucking matters happens, and you're like, I have a template for that. That is what Leo has been explaining to me since I've met him. And that is, and Leo, it worked, man. Like it worked, and I'm gonna send you this. But that's the last thing I have to say about it. But I'm gonna go back to the way things used to be in 2023, the way that I know how to do it. Popularity or not, I don't give a fuck. I am gonna have the t-shirt though. So, but but it's a t-shirt that no one's gonna see. And I need to get back to where I was because I got too arrogant, too cocky, too fast.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
and that's my fault.
I think
so.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, the whole popularity thing, I think people can get lost in, but I think that's
yeah. But honestly, I haven't.
That's what I mean. I just, because you said about popularity. I mean, when I came back over to YouTube from Twitch, the first 2 messages I had on one of my channels was one saying basically, you've saved someone's life today, and the other one saying, you've explained my condition, and I've never usually found that. Those were the 2 main interactions I've had, and that was on the smaller of my channels, and it's just like, you know what, I don't give a fuck if you know my name. And
I will still do the Patreon thing or whatever for the reality, whatever it is, because I like doing it. But the second part about this is like, I don't want to turn into the person that I felt myself turning into. And that's like, I could see it. I could see it on videos. I could see it in the tone of my voice. I could see it on everything like that. Now, granted, I'm still going to be kind of an arrogant prick, but the problem is I'm going to be an arrogant prick to make sure you know that you can be an arrogant prick. Okay, and that's okay.
Knowing your worth isn't arrogance just because other people want to label it as such, as I'd say. Mechi.
I love you, Adam.
What about you, Mechi?
I just want fun. I want to have fun. No, I've been working so hard for the last 2 years. Like Leo said, the systems, all of that, I did that this year. Now it's time to enjoy my systems, sit back, relax, go on vacations, and go with the flow. I like that I took, like, yeah, I want to go with the flow. I want to have fun, but I want to have boundaries. Like, I don't want to be the person that is always available, that always doing something, always. No, I mean, I want to put myself first. And I'm going to use what Lobo said and what Adam is always saying to me. Turn on your own. Sorry, I forgot the quote.
First.
Yeah, I'm going to turn on my light first. I'm going to put myself first. And that's going to be fun. So, yeah, that's what I want to do next year.
Fair play. I mean, I literally make candles. So, turn on your light first, fucking make the candle first.
Is that the reason why you make them?
I don't know. No, it's literally halfway through a Twitch stream and somebody said something and that just came into my head. It just came out of nowhere. How my mind's weird.